Some people call it a money pit. Some people call it, you know, a new fun fancy car. We picked up a 2000 Ferrari 360. We're not going to go in too in depth. We're just going to kind of go over like just a general overview of the car. You know, a little bit of the background about it, how I got it. So what we ended up doing was probably not making a smart financial move, but it's a car I've always wanted, and I saw a decent deal on it and I jumped on it. These things are amazing. When I used to work at the dealership back in like 2010 era, 2009, 2010, these things were coming in. They were being serviced a lot more because they were in production, and well, they weren't in production necessarily, but they were floating around a lot. A lot of people were changing hands of them, and they were being, you know, the 430s were out, the Californias were out, the 458 I think was just coming out, if I'm not mistaken, and the 612 was already out, and they were selling those. But these things are awesome. These things they're literally like a go-kart. This one happens to be an F1 transmission. It's not a gated 6-speed, although I wish it probably was. They're super expensive to get. Now, don't get me wrong, this one's also expensive. They just are in general. Normally what makes these cars super expensive is it's the maintenance and the labor that goes into maintaining these things, okay? So if you're looking at one of these, or you're kind of wondering like, hey, what does it cost to really maintain one of these things? If you don't have all the tools and equipment to do it yourself, or you don't know how to work on them, it gets very expensive very fast, okay? That's also to say that the parts, they can be expensive as well. Now, that doesn't mean that every single part is super expensive on these cars, but certain parts are definitely expensive. So for example, like if you were to do a major service on one of these, you could do a timing belt kit, which would come with like the timing belts, the tensioner bearings, probably an oil filter, a pollen filter, valve cover gaskets, all the seals associated with that, and you know, is there anything else? Anyway, roughly about that many things that stuff. You're paying about $1,300 to $1,500 just for those parts, okay? Not cheap, but at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, when you look at a major service and when you take this to like a shop and they quote you for it, it's anywhere from 5 to 15 grand. So obviously there's a lot of labor involved in that, and you're going to be tearing a lot of stuff apart. If you're doing it yourself, it exponentially gets cheaper, okay? So that doesn't mean, like I said, that this car is super cheap. It's not a super cheap car to maintain. It's not a super cheap car to own, technically. So anyway, at the end of the day, we picked this thing up for a good deal because when I talked to the guy who had it, he hadn't done the service. And being that I used to work at Ferrari a long time ago for a short period of time, probably about a year or so, which is not a very long time. So don't get me wrong, I don't ever claim to be an expert on these things, but I've had my hands on a few of them, so I know how they work and I know some of their quirks. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I've been working on cars for a long time, so I have tons of experience. I've got tons of tools sitting over here. So I can handle it. It's not a big deal. I've got to go through here and I've got to change the fluids on everything because I don't know anything about, you know, when it was done last. There's not much of a service history on this car. I did find some information. Let me show you here if I can get in here without dropping this camera. Okay, so in the front trunk, I took off this cover here, okay? And this is normally to cover the brake fluid, right? What I found was an actual plate with a sticker on it where it was serviced last around, looks like 2011, okay? And it had 14,473 miles on it at that point. The next required service that it lists, it says on the sticker, is about 17,500 miles. Now this car has, once I picked it up, 18,800. So it's about 1,000 or so miles over when it's supposed to have its next service. That's not horrible, but like I said, I don't know what's been done to this car and what hasn't been done. So we're gonna go and figure that out. But in order to do all that stuff, I've got to lift the car up in the air to be able to look at the underside of the car, check things out, see what's going on with it, see if there's any leaks or if there's any cracked panels, missing bolts or fasteners or things like that, because I don't know where this car's been to or who it's been through. And in order to do that, to lift this car up, to do that, and even to change some of the fluids, I'm gonna have to have some sort of a lift. I've avoided this, not on purpose, but I've kind of like been able to skate by for a while without having to have one, like a 2-post lift or a 4-post lift. If any of you guys are even looking at one of these or even curious about it, let me kind of show you. I don't know if there's going to be enough light underneath the car, but I'll show you kind of from the outside. But basically, right here, underneath, right about here, there's like an indentation, okay? And it's circular, and there's plastic around it, so to speak, or yeah, it's basically like fiberglass or something, a panel. But there's a recessed part in there. And you usually fit something like a hockey puck, or kind of like the lift pucks I showed you on the Maserati, except for it doesn't have that cylinder on the top of the puck. It's just a flat puck. But basically, these cars are pretty much made to be lifted up on a 2-post lift, where and there's specific spots for it on the car. Now, you can, don't get me wrong, you can lift that car with a floor jack if you really want to, and you can use like a hockey puck or a lift puck of some sorts. But the issue comes to, or starts to show itself when like you've lifted it up with a jack, and then now you have to basically put it on a jack stand. And where do you do that? So now you can have a second floor jack where you can put it on like the end of the control arm on like the right where the knuckle or the lower ball joint is, kind of support it while you go through and then put a jack stand. It's a pain in the butt. It's kind of a disaster. You can do it. You've got a floor jack lifting up all 4 corners, and then at those corners where you're going to also temporarily put another floor jack, you've got to take the wheel off to do that. So you're doing that for all 4 corners of the car. That's not worth it to me. I've already kind of played jumping through the hoops with the Viper itself. Generally what I do is stick a floor jack under here, right around here, and then it lifts the car up enough to where I can get a floor jack onto the front end or off to the side on the frame, and I lift it, stick a jack stand underneath it, and I do the same thing across each one. I don't have to pull the wheels off on it, but it's close enough to a problem that buying a floor like a quick jack or something like that, is probably going to solve my problems and make life much, much easier. That way you guys don't have to watch me do time lapses of using a floor jack to lift these cars, because that's a waste of everybody's time, right? Kind of cool looking, but do you really want to see that? Probably not. We're gonna go ahead and continue to work on the Maserati. That's not going anywhere, guys. I'm still gonna have videos of that. I've still got stuff to do. I still need to probably flush the coolant on this thing. I still gotta bleed the brakes on this. I still have a few things, like I think there's a tiny power steering leak with hoses that I've still gotta fix that's on that thing. So there's still gonna be more content coming from that. That doesn't mean I'm gonna shy away from it. The Ferrari itself, like I said, I haven't even begun to dive into this thing yet. So I don't even have a checklist. I really need to get it up in the air. I need to have a flashlight on it. And I need, basically pen and paper or something to make notes with, and go down the list and just start writing down everything I see and all the stuff that needs to be done to it, and then amass parts basically, and then kind of tackle that. The other thing is, I haven't really shown you guys hardly anything of the Viper, okay? This one doesn't have a lot of stuff wrong with it. It does have a tune/drivability issue. It's not really terrible. It's just more of a boost leak than anything. It's set for 6 or 7 PSI on the turbos that it has, and it doesn't hold the boost. And I don't know if it's a boost leak somewhere that I can't see. I've pressure tested it, like the charge piping. I've not ripped the front bumper off and checked the intercooler and the couplers at that, location. So there's things I still have to do. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So that car is a whole nother story. It's got higher miles on it. However, it's almost virtually brand new, suspension, brake wise, and engine wise. The only thing I think that's really original to it anymore at this point is the T56, the transmission that's in there, and the rear end. Even the drive shaft is original. However, I have replaced all the U-joints, but I would say 90 or 85, 90% of this car is basically rebuilt from with OEM parts or better than OEM parts. So it's close to being, in a pretty good stable state where I can just drive it and enjoy it without having to worry about much. But there's a few little things cosmetically that are not perfect about this car, but that's not the end of the world. It looks okay otherwise. I mean, it's got rock chips that are in the vinyl stripes here, and these are the original stripes, and they're kind of showing their age and showing some scratches and showing a little bit of, they're just showing age. Also, there's certain little parts of the car paint wise that are not perfect by any stretch. The car's got 68,000 miles on it, and it's a 2001. So honestly, it's not really surprising. I mean, I've got things like this. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but little, you know, scuffs on it. So it is what it is. It's still a pretty good looking car overall, but nothing's perfect. I'm surprised it's in this good a shape for the age that it is. And same thing for the Ferrari. The Ferrari is not perfect, so don't think that this thing is like showroom condition by any chance. I got it cheap because there are a few things that are wrong with it, right? So it has rock chips all over the front bumper and the hood. They're not extremely visible, but that happens on those cars, on the Ferraris, simply because there is nothing that's going to protect them from rock chips. Unless you PPF'd the car like right out of the box when you got it, it happens. It's common. And what I'll probably have to do is take the bumper off at some point, take it to a body shop, have them repaint it. I'm not one of those people that does body work. I leave that to the experts that do that stuff. That's just not my thing. Same thing goes for repairing interior stuff, unless it's trim panels or things like that. I'm not a leather guy. I'm not, you know, or maybe I might fix like plastic trim panels if they break, like you heard me talk about with the Maserati, for example. But I tend to leave those specified areas to people that specialize in them. Honestly, I specialize in mechanical stuff and electrical stuff. I'll let other people do the paint, body work, and you know, the leather and stuff like that. Leave it to the experts. But anyway, very cool car. Let me open the door and show you guys here so you can see what it looks like on the inside. It's in really good shape, I think. It is an F1, like I said. It's not a 6-speed. Eventually down the road, I may convert it to a 6-speed, but like right now, I just want to enjoy it as it is and drive it around, improve it if I can, and see where we go. But here's the inside of the car. So tan leather. It's an F1, like I said. The seats are a little touch dirty. They could probably be wiped down pretty good. But overall, this car is ridiculously clean. It's got some issues, like you can probably see here with the dash leather. Oops. You know, it shrinks over time. Also, I've got the dash vents up there that are busted, that are plastic. Those are the factory dash vents. That happens. That happens on these for sure. Also, it happens on, for example, one car think of that comes to mind is, if you guys remember the old 3000 GT VR4s, or just the 3000 GTs in general, same thing happens to those in the dashes. They have literally very, very similar dash vents that look like this, and they crack. Headlights look okay. There's nothing that's really torched in here that I can see. There's a little bubble here on that headlight, just slightly. Otherwise, it seems fine, to be honest. It's not terrible. Car is definitely a little bit dirty. That's the F1 pump priming. The interior is actually in pretty darn good shape. It's really not bad. The carpets and these things always tend to get a little bit dirty. That's just kind of how they are. I think what I'll probably do is do what I did in the Maserati. I may get some aftermarket, let's see if I can show you. I might get some aftermarket floor mats that have that diamond stitching or whatever it is on there. They look, I gotta move some stuff out of the way, but I'll kind of show you. Hopefully we don't ding this door. So something like this, right? That's not terrible. It's kind of cool. It adds a little character to the car. It looks kind of nice. Helps protect the carpet and everything. They basically said, oh, well, it comes with a challenge grill, or you can have the original grill on the car. And I said, well, give them to me both. I don't, just leave it how it is right now. And I may install the challenge grill later on. I probably will, only because when you put the challenge grill on these things, it looks cool, but also at the same time, in the back here, it lets out heat. As you're driving, it's sucking heat out because it's basically just, it looks kind of like, this is kind of an exaggeration, but it kind of looks like this a little bit, all those smaller honeycombs, right? And basically it allows, airflow to be, or heat to be sucked out or to escape while you're driving. Now, under the hood, these things generate a lot of heat, and you have two computers, okay? One that controls each individual bank of cylinders on this car. So there's one here and there's one back here. And obviously with electronics and heat, they don't play nice over time, and that's a possibility. Those computers could end up getting torched or having to be replaced. It's not a fun thing, it's not cheap. So anything you can do to reduce the amount of heat that's in these cars or in the engine bays and stuff like that, always a good thing to do, okay? I don't have a flashlight. Let me go grab one so I can show you. Here's the motor. You can probably see it is definitely dirty. It needs some work. There are some cam cover leaks for sure. There are hoses that could be cleaned up. That oil tank absolutely needs to be refinished. Like I said, as you can see, it needs some TLC. It needs some love and care and some maintenance, and that's exactly what I intend to do to it. It has, I believe, before I got it, a new F1 pump, and I have a receipt somewhere showing that from the previous person that owned it. I'm also, like I said, I'm in contact with a shop that did touch this a while back, around 14 or 15,000 miles, and I'm going to see what they have on record to show what's been done with it. So I'll get some further info about it. We'll probably start with changing fluids. We'll probably start with something like power steering, brakes, coolant, oil, F1 fluid, which is basically ATF, like really high quality synthetic ATF, and gearbox oil, like for the transmission. A lot of people don't really know that the F1 transmissions in these are literally just manual transmissions that are hydraulically shifted. That's all it is. That's why it's easy to swap this thing over to a manual. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not cheap, but once you've converted it, like, the resale value jumps through the roof. I don't plan to resell the car. I don't plan to flip the car. I plan to drive it and enjoy it. Some people are after that kind of stuff, but I tend to just buy cars, hang on to them, enjoy them, repair them. And if I decide later down the road I'm going to swap into something else, then I'll do that. But I don't think I have any plans to really do that anytime soon. I've just planned to drive them, enjoy them, and repair them. And that's the enjoyment that I get out of them. So, anyways, stay tuned with us. We'll be bringing a hell of a lot more videos to you guys, showing you more stuff. If you guys like this and this sounds good to you, let me know. Leave some comments. I thought I would give you guys kind of a video showing what we are planning on doing, or what I plan on doing, and maybe bringing my sons in here doing some of this stuff too, just so you guys know kind of what might be coming down the pipe. So like I said, if you like this stuff, please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know if you got suggestions and things you want to see. By all means, let me know. I'll catch you next time.